So how reliable are our modern Bibles? Today we're going to look at the New Testament. We have 5,366 manuscripts of the New Testament. So before the printing press was invented, and Bibles were printed manually, they were all copied by hand. And so of those 5,366 manuscripts of the New Testament, I just want to show you in comparison, we have 643 copies of Homer's Iliad, which would be one of the most famous ancient Greek writings. Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars is also very famous, but we only have 10 copies of that, and those copies are 1,000 years after the originals. Now with the New Testament manuscripts, we have the earliest copy we have is a fragment. It's called John Ryland's Fragment, and it's in the University of Manchester, and that is dated at about 125 AD. So it's less than 100 years from, as a matter of fact, it's about 50 years within the time frame from the originals. So with the New Testament writings, we have closer proximity to the originals in the copies that we have. We have many more copies than anything else that we have in ancient literature. There are some problems, and we call these problems variants. Most of the variants that we have, there's about 300 variants in the New Testament. Almost all those variants are misspellings or word variation between manuscripts. But 99.5% of that, according to New Testament critics, textual critics, who this is all they do, they spend all their time comparing the manuscript evidence. And they say that we have 99.5% certainty of what the originals said when we compare the manuscripts. That's a very high number, higher than anything we have in ancient literature at all. But there are some problems. One is John 5:7, which is contained in the King James Version, and it's omitted in almost all our newer translations like the ESV, the NASV, the NIV, and so forth, because there's only one Greek manuscript out of 1,520 that contains it. It happens to be the manuscript that was used for the translation of the King James. So most Bibles don't contain that, and you'll see a footnote related to that, John 5:7. Another famous passage is John 7:53 to 8:11, which is the famous story of the woman caught in adultery. And again, this is not in most of the early manuscripts. So some scholars think it should be there, some don't. And again, you can look at the evidence for that in the Greek New Testament. As a matter of fact, the Greek New Testament, for all the variants that are there, 300 or so, what it does is it shows you what manuscripts have what wording and where it differs. And every single passage where there's differences, all of that is contained in the Greek New Testament. As a matter of fact, if you can see this at all, you have the text of the Greek, and then below that on every page you have the manuscript evidence for the wording there. And where it differs, it tells you, and it rates everything so you can know what's certain and what's uncertain, but it'll tell you the differences. And again, the differences never affect doctrine or accuracy so much as just spellings, grammar, and things like that are minor issues. There's 10,000 variants in all of the manuscripts, and most of those concerns matters, again, of spelling or word order. There are about 40 places in the New Testament where we're not certain of the reading of the original. Another one that's highly emphasized is the ending of Mark. Most scholars believe that the ending of Mark, the last 9 to 11 verses or so, verses 9 to 20 of chapter 16 of Mark, also were not original. But the ending's so abrupt, they think that it was sort of a compilation of the truth of the other Gospels that was added by some manuscript writers. And we can see exactly where that happened. So you'll get that footnote in your New Testaments. Now, I've been teaching the Bible for over 30 years, and I have total confidence that 99.5 0.5% of it is exactly as it was in the original as handed down. That 0.5%, again, is minor. It doesn't affect doctrine. It doesn't affect history. It doesn't deter me from thinking that we have the originals. We just don't know with absolute certainty whether it's A or B, but it doesn't affect any of our doctrine. Okay, so F.F. Bruce is a great New Testament scholar from the 20th century, wrote this. He said, "There's no body of ancient literature in the world that enjoys such a wealth of textual attestation as the New Testament. The variant readings about which any doubt remains among textual critics of the New Testament affect no material question of historic fact or the Christian faith, meaning doctrine and practice." He wrote that in the New Testament documents. Are they reliable? Which I highly recommend you read that. And it gives just great evidence for the New Testament reliability of the manuscripts we have. Sir Frederick Kenyon was a great archaeologist in the 20th century, and he wrote this. He said, "The interval then between the dates of original composition, so from the originals, and the earliest extant evidence, the manuscript copies that we have, is so small as to be in fact negligible. And the last foundation for any doubt that the scriptures have come down to us substantially as they were written has now been removed. Both the authenticity and the general integrity of the books of the New Testament may be regarded as established." So, how should we view the New Testament documents? Just like the Old Testament, the evidence that we have is overwhelming, that it's so close to the original, based on all the evidence that we have, that we can be certain that the Christian faith, as we read our Old Testaments, as we read our New Testaments, is exactly what was being read by Daniel when he read Jeremiah in the Old Testament, and Jesus when he interpreted the prophets in the New Testament, when Peter talks about Paul's writings being inspired, and Paul talking about all scripture being God-breathed. We can trust that what Paul, Jesus, Jeremiah, David, and all the biblical authors said was indeed from God.